There are rising concerns over Chinese-made surveillance cameras in the government offices in Australia. Canberra has now removed more than 900 Chinese-made surveillance cameras, intercoms, electronic entry systems and video recorders. An audit last week found that the technology had been installed in more than 250 departments and agencies in Australia. Australia's cybersecurity minister had earlier called Chinese espionage and foreign interference the greatest threat to Australia's way of life. The minister said that all the cameras within his department's buildings will be removed, asserting how it was to make sure that the facilities are completely secure. China, meanwhile, has reacted to the order to remove the cameras as an erroneous action that abuses state power and discriminates against Chinese companies. Meanwhile, Australia is not the only country that has removed Chinese surveillance cameras. Similar moves have been made in the United States and in Britain, which have taken measures to stop the government buildings from installing Chinese-made cameras at sensitive sites. The two China-based companies that supply these cameras are Hikvision and Dahua. Hikvision is one of the largest manufacturers of video surveillance equipment in the world, selling it to almost 200 countries. Meanwhile, Dahua is Hikvision's largest global competitor and the second largest company in this space. According to the US Department of Commerce, Hikvision and Dahua have been implicated in the high technology surveillance of the Uyghur minority in the Xinjiang region. The US had banned imports of surveillance equipment made by two companies in November last year, saying that it posed unacceptable risk to the national security. After UK, US and Australia, is India next in line? Prama Hikvision is India's largest surveillance camera supplier, with contracts for the government and the public sector firms. While India has banned several Chinese apps, Prama Hikvision was not among the affected firms. Dr. Malcolm Davies is a senior analyst at the Australian Strategic Policy Institute. Dr. Malcolm is joining us live from Canberra. Dr. Malcolm, welcome to the program. Is Australia's fear over Chinese-made surveillance cameras justified, and should other countries like India be worried or cautious?
Look, it is justified. These are very sophisticated surveillance cameras being produced by Hikvision and Dahua. They have facial recognition technology built into them. So that allows them to identify individuals and then send that information back across the internet to China, to the Hikvision and Dahua organizations, which under the Chinese law are required to share that information with the Chinese Ministry of State Security, their intelligence organization. These cameras also have an audio gathering capability, enabling them to listen in on conversations. So we're concerned for the right reason, and I think India should be concerned as well.
Dr. Malcolm, critics say Australia should take a more systematic approach in the use of all critical data collecting communication technologies and also create rules for suppliers. What do you make of that statement?
Look, I think that the wake-up call for Australia came back in 2015 with the Huawei issue, where the Chinese company Huawei tried to dominate and control our critical communications infrastructure through 5G telecommunications. We quite rightly banned Huawei from that, and we led the way in terms of other countries following in our footsteps and banning Huawei. I don't think it's an overreaction on our part to now take a leading role in essentially getting rid of these sorts of surveillance capabilities. We should have done it some time ago because we've had other allies such as the US and the UK doing it. We're now having to scramble to respond to this challenge. And I think it's very clear that the Chinese are planting these cameras as part of a means to gather intelligence on Australian activities.
How much of a global threat do you think this latest development is?
It's a significant global threat in the sense that one of the key elements of future technology that is talked about is smart cities, where you have these Internet of Things based technologies that are always on, that basically provide information on a real-time basis about activities that are occurring in an urban area, be it traffic flows or be it issues in terms of urbanization people control and so forth. Now, that can be used for positive in the sense that it could solve problems with urban environments, but it can also be an intrusion of privacy, and it gives states like China the ability to monitor people on a large scale. So, we're talking the fictional Big Brother here made reality. And I think that in a country like India, for example, where you have large urban areas with large numbers of people, smart city technology would be very useful for China to maintain a watch on individuals and key groups in India, including key defense and national security leaders who would be covered by these cameras.
Finally, Dr. Malcolm, greater scrutiny by countries like the United States, UK and Australia may further push Chinese surveillance companies to seek relationships in countries that are perceived as more stable commercial partners. Which countries could this be, and should they conduct due diligence before allowing these surveillance systems?
Well, look, I think it's fairly obvious that Beijing is seeking to promote the BRICS as an alternative power structure to essentially a Western liberal democratic order. India is part of that. And so I think that India, like the other BRICS members, do need to take this seriously, because ultimately what China is doing with the BRICS is seeking to create a power structure that it controls. And I think that smart city technology, these sorts of surveillance cameras that have facial recognition, that give the Chinese intelligence services the ability to maintain a watch over key individuals, their movements, their conversations, are a real concern. So I would strongly suggest that, whilst you're probably right that they will concentrate on new markets, remember that it's Beijing that is trying to control those societies, control those markets. It's not some sort of equal partnership.
Dr. Malcolm Davis, thank you for your insights today on WION World is One.
Thank you.
WION is now available in your country. Download the app now and get all the news on the move.